Hello, you're listening to the Achieve With Me podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Rachel Gilfrin, and I'll be spending the next few minutes chatting to you about what achieving, winning, and success mean to you. As a life coach, in my opinion, all of these things are very closely linked to having a positive mindset. And this has come up a lot for me in my journey towards success within my career. In fact, it still does. I'll be sharing my own highs and lows from the last 13 years of my career, plus a good deal of confidence and communication techniques that you can start implementing today. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Achieve With Me podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about motivation, and I have to be really honest here. I started off wanting to do an episode on motivation because I think it's something that's so important, and the way in which we motivate ourselves day to day is really so important in how it translates into the success that we create for ourselves. So I was really keen to go through some of my top hints and tips on motivating yourself. But unfortunately, over the past week, I have really struggled with motivation. As an entrepreneur, this is actually really difficult for me to say. It's difficult, A, for me to recognise within myself, but also to admit with myself that I've been going through this. It seemed ironic, really, because I share loads of content on Instagram and on my website about using your initiative and seizing the day, making things happen. My role as a life coach centres around energising other women to go forth and pursue their dreams, to help them look within and find the answers, and to help them understand why we do the things that we do. So let me ask you this. How do I admit to myself that yesterday I spent an hour and 15 minutes totally lost in the scroll on my phone? Terrible, I know, and the guilt that I have after not being so productive is terrible. But it was just such a strange few days. I just felt lost in this invisible fog in my brain. It's like I was there, but I was just totally tuned out of anything that was going on around me. I felt no urgency whatsoever to do anything, really. It was like, have you ever been in a conversation with someone and every time you pause and sort of wait for their response, they respond with this vague sort of, And they'll be like looking away perhaps, maybe like biting their nails or something, and they just don't seem to have been listening at all. It's so frustrating when that happens. That was me. But that was me in response to my own attempt at being productive or even planning or considering being productive. So I was having this sort of internal battle with myself. I was really frustrated, but then I also couldn't be bothered to do anything about it. Every now and again, I'd sort of half attempt to do something, but then I would just end up making excuses for myself in my mind, like, well, I haven't got time to finish this once I start, so I'm just going to leave it for today. Or, I don't actually need to do that until Thursday, so I may as well just do it then. What was happening? After a bit of consideration, I remembered. I'd not been here for a while, but I certainly had been here before. I was procrastinating big time. Now, you've probably all heard of procrastinating, the act of putting things off until a time in the future, saying I'll do it tomorrow and then never actually getting round to it. But it was only last year that I was lucky enough to stumble across a podcast that really helped me to understand what I was doing and why I was doing it. Now, the podcast was by Sam Laura Brown, and it's called The Perfectionism Project. I highly recommend it, and I will put the link in the show notes for you. But effectively, having listened to this and learned more, I discovered that I was a perfectionist. Now, this was as much a surprise to me as it will be to anyone, I'm telling you now, because in the past, I'd always assumed that a perfectionist was somebody who took an immense level of pride in their work, somebody who was always presented immaculately and had really high standards. And unfortunately, none of these points ever rung a bell when I was thinking about the way that I behave and the way that I conduct myself. But actually, perfectionism is totally different to that. Now, I've taken an extract from a human mind owner's manual that I have by Joelle and Natalie Rivera. And the reason I've taken this extract is I think it explains it really well. So they say, the perfectionist, it pushes you to do better, but even when you do better, you still feel like you're not good enough. There is always more you should be doing. Mistakes and setbacks must be avoided or quickly moved past. It pushes you to seek external validation, external achievement and status. Acceptance by others is of the utmost importance. It probably even stops you from taking action because you're afraid to fail. Perfectionists tend to say, I need to do better or I'm not good enough. If you're a perfectionist, you can tame it by focusing on activities that will help you judge yourself less, such as growth mindset, overcoming indecision, and overcoming inaction. So that's the end of the extract that I mentioned from the Human Mind Owner's Manual. And what I've taken from this is that in summary, my procrastination occurs as a result of worrying about failure. Again, it's something that's quite hard to admit, but I know that I'm not the only one who feels like this. And I know that when I went through the process of discovering and identifying as a perfectionist, it was quite freeing to realise what I'd been doing. Perfectionists tend to withhold effort when they're looking to achieve a goal, so that when they don't achieve that goal, they can console themselves by saying in the back of their minds, well, I know I didn't go for it 100%, so no wonder it didn't work out. What's the reason for this? Well, imagine you've been aiming to do something for a while and you decide, you know what, I'm going to pull out all the stops. I'm going to invest time, money, energy, you name it. I am going for this. Imagine doing all that and then not reaching your goal or failing or not achieving it. That would be totally crushing. Whereas if you just hold back that tiny bit, you've always got that excuse of, oh, I know if I'd have put all my effort in, I would have achieved it. Now, is there anyone listening now thinking, oh my goodness, I totally do this? And I bet there's also people listening thinking, why on earth would you do that to yourself? That just makes no sense. And in a way, that's correct. But we're all different, and being honest about who you are and why you do the things you do is such an important part of managing your life and your path to success, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. So this morning, upon reflecting on this and reminding myself about my perfectionist tendencies, I made a conscious choice to snap myself out of it. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to get back into flow, but I knew I needed to start somewhere. You see, action creates clarity. So what I did was I began to journal on how I wanted to feel at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month. Because I'm somebody that craves that feeling of accomplishment. And I knew that if I put myself in a position where I imagined that I had achieved nothing, then that would be really difficult for me to accept. So as I wrote, I started to feel more excited about the prospect of ticking things off my list. Very satisfying. And then I decided to start with making a delicious brunch to get me going. So which was 2-ingredient pancakes, by the way, if anyone hasn't had them before. It's 1 mashed banana with 2 eggs, whisked together, fried in butter. Absolutely delicious if you've not already tried them. So I'm having my delicious brunch and I'm envisioning success. And just by doing this process, I started to feel more and more encouraged. And because I'd achieved something on my list, even though it was just making the brunch and eating it, I wanted to move on and achieve more things on my list. So I did the second thing, and then I did the third thing, and then the fourth. And honestly, I began to feel more energized the more tasks I completed. I realized that I just needed to begin to get out of the slump that I felt I was in. So if you're anything like me and you tend to go through periods of immense procrastination, the trick is to just find the motivation to do that first task. Now, on the flip side of this, and I just want to counter this with something, in the past, I've always been an advocate of eat that frog. And if you haven't heard of this concept, it's a book, and it's really the concept of making the first task of the day that you do the trickiest, biggest, scariest thing on your list, just to get it done and dusted and out of the way. So when you're looking at your list and struggling to find where to start, you would just pick the worst thing basically and just get it done. And usually what happens here is that by doing that, you just feel that sense of accomplishment that I talked about earlier. And from having this sense of accomplishment, it tends to work a treat, to be honest, because you just whiz through the rest of the list. But I also know that when you're stuck in the brain fog, like I was and have been for the past couple of days, just imagining eating the frog absolutely frightens the life out of me and would promote even more procrastination in my life because I'd be scared of eating the frog. So in order to break the cycle, I think it can often be done by doing the kindest, most enticing thing on your list to get you going, which is where the pancakes came in. So go and make the pancakes and envision achieving your goals with every bite. I hope that this has resonated with some of you, but if you continue to feel stuck and are really struggling to make any sense of what you want, where you want to go in life, and how to get even started, this can be a little bit more deep-rooted. And in this case, it might be really helpful for you to talk to somebody, a friend, or even a coach to help you unpick that web of confusion that seems to be following you around. Guys, if anything that I've been through today, whether that's lack of motivation, perfectionism, procrastination, if anything has resonated with you and you fancy having a chat with a fellow perfectionist, let's talk. As part of my life coaching business, I offer free 30-minute discovery calls to help you understand how life coaching can help you identify and achieve your goals. I would absolutely love to hear from you, and each discovery call is totally no obligation, so don't worry if you're not sure, if you're not ready for coaching yet. It's really just to help you to understand how it could help you, whether that's now or whether that's in the future. So I hope you found this episode useful, guys. Remember, if you're not already following me, I am on Instagram at Rachel Harriet Coaching, and you can follow me to keep up to date with the latest tips and techniques on improving your confidence and communication skills in the workplace. And make sure you hit subscribe. We have got a really exciting guest coming onto the podcast next week, and she is going to be talking all about interviews and the best way in which to identify what's the next path for you. So lots of exciting things happening. But for now, I'll look forward to seeing you next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Achieve With Me podcast. Remember to subscribe to be notified of any new episodes being published. And please do leave me a rating and a review if you like what you heard. follow me online for more tips and techniques at Rachel Harriet Coaching on Instagram. Have a great day.